For Charles Leclerc, the 2024 Formula One Monaco Grand Prix was not just a simple walk in the park as it might have seemed from the outside, considering the superiority the Monegasque demonstrated on the home streets behind the wheel of the Ferrari SF-24 car. The Ferrari driver experienced a couple of tense moments that could have undermined the confidence of someone who was finally building the perfect weekend after several years of disappointment in front of his home fans. At the end of the last free practice session in Monte Carlo, the one which took place on Saturday morning before the very important qualifying session, an alarm went off for Engine 1 that the Maranello technicians had decided to bring back into the race. After thorough checks on the 06612 six-cylinder turbo power unit, all doubts were dismissed and the engine could return to rotation on a track like Monte Carlo, where maximum power is not a determining aspect in terms of overall lap performance. Suddenly, a sensor went off, triggering an alert back at the remote garage in Maranello. The engineers quickly discovered there was an abnormal temperature in the lubrication system. This was a critical moment that demanded immediate attention. In order to avoid any potential risks, a swift decision was made. The team immediately decided to dismantle the power unit and install Engine 3 on the SF-24 single-seater of Charles Leclerc. This was the same power unit used by him at the Imola circuit in Italy just a week before. It was a crucial yet bold move. For the Ferrari team, it was a super job, albeit unplanned. In Q1, it took Charles Leclerc only one lap to understand that everything had been reassembled perfectly. After dominating the free practice, he was fully ready and geared up to go in pursuit of the pole position. However, the pit wall didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief before another alarm went off. This time, it was the aerodynamics team who suddenly saw more than 20 points of aerodynamic efficiency disappear from the right side of the front wing. Charles Leclerc had not reported hitting curbs, guardrails, or walls, so there was some growing apprehension because in Q1 there was a risk of not making it past the first cut due to the terribly small gaps between the cars. On lap 3, Charles Leclerc set a 1:12.839, which was not in line with previous performances. He did a cool-down lap and then went again, 1:12.452, slightly better, but not enough to hope to stay safe. TV images solved the mystery. A piece of plasticized advertising cloth that was covering a rail had come off the protection and covered a crucial area of the front wing. It was as if a hood had been put on the SF-24, preventing the outwash effect near the side end plate, so the air was not pushed outside the front wheel, cleaning the wake, but instead generating a disastrous aerodynamic blockage. Charles Leclerc was promptly called back to the pits, and after the mechanics removed the banner, he resumed driving with the determination and confidence we had appreciated in the free practice sessions for the Monaco Grand Prix. On the 8th lap, he comfortably set a 1:11.653 that put him out of any danger. From that moment on, no one could contain him until he secured the 24th pole position of his Formula One career, as two world champions before him had done, namely Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet. Ferrari and Charles Leclerc gave a great demonstration of their ability to stay calm in the only moments when the perfect weekend in Monaco could have turned into another unlucky episode like the previous ones the Monegasque had experienced in the Principality. Discovering how 0.8 of performance per lap disappeared in an instant must have been a highly stressful moment even for Brian Bozzi, the new track engineer who managed to keep his driver calm. Once the piece of plasticized advertising cloth was removed, the missing 20 points magically reappeared. Then, in Maranello, they could start dreaming. And there are some who still haven't woken up after an amazing Sunday in Monte Carlo. The victory marked Ferrari's second of the 2024 campaign so far, after the Italian side triumphed at the Albert Park circuit in the Australian Grand Prix with Carlos Sainz in March. Red Bull has won 5 out of the opening 8 races in the 2024 Formula One campaign, with McLaren and Lando Norris coming out on top in Miami earlier this month. With Ferrari also looking strong on certain race circuits, it seems that the pecking order at the front will change from race to race, bringing the title fight late into the championship, which should make for an entertaining second part of the season, when the updates and developments introduced by the 3 top teams could prove crucial given the current small gaps between the Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull cars. Looking back at Charles Leclerc's victory last weekend in Monte Carlo, it undoubtedly meant most to him because he finally scored a win in his home city. But it also drew a line under a frustrating spell in which he has repeatedly come close to winning, yet failed to. The Ferrari driver made Monaco only the 13th different country to produce a home race winner in the World Championship era. It has had a home winner before, Louis Chiron, who in 1931 won the third Monaco Grand Prix, 19 years before the championship began. And of course, it has been won by drivers who lived in Monaco many times before. Charles Leclerc and rival Max Verstappen scored the first home Formula One race wins for their respective countries, the Red Bull driver doing so at the Zandvoort circuit back in 2021. The Dutchman remains undefeated in his home race since that moment. Remarkably, this sixth victory of Charles Leclerc's career came from his 24th pole position. His wins tally puts him level with two Formula One world champions, John Surtees and Jochen Rindt, as well as Tony Brooks, Gilles Villeneuve, Jacques Lafitte, Ricardo Patrese, Ralf Schumacher, and Sergio Perez. The latter is the only driver in the field who could give his country its first home winner this year, when Formula One visits Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez later in the season. Japan's Yuki Tsunoda and Australia's Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri could do the same, but they will have to wait at least until next year. As Charles Leclerc sat on pole position on Sunday in Monaco, had he failed to win, he would have equaled the record for most consecutive pole positions, which did not result in a victory. That was set by René Arnoux, who set 13 pole positions over 4 seasons from 1979 to 1982 without winning once. The Monegasque's victory in the 70th World Championship Monaco Grand Prix was Ferrari's 10th in the race during that time. They are the second most successful team in the race, McLaren having 15 wins, the last of which came in 2008. Charles Leclerc produced the second lights-to-flag victory of the season, the other having been scored by Max Verstappen at the first round at the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir. Lewis Hamilton, the future Ferrari teammate of Charles Leclerc, denied the Monegasque driver the second Grand Slam pole, fastest lap, and leading every lap for victory of his career. The 7-time Formula One world champion took the fastest lap for the third time in the last 4 Monaco Grand Prix. This was the 66th fastest lap of Lewis Hamilton's career, leaving him 11 shy of the all-time record held by Ferrari legend Michael Schumacher. However, Lewis Hamilton passed Michael Schumacher's record for most pole positions with the same team, taking his 54th for Mercedes, his fellow septuple champion having 53 with Scuderia Ferrari. McLaren's Oscar Piastri equaled his best result to date with second place, which he also scored in Qatar last year. He and Charles Leclerc were joined on the podium by Carlos Sainz, who reached the rostrum in Monaco for the third time in his 4 years during his time with Scuderia Ferrari. Finally, in a depressing indication of how processional the race was, not a single position changed hands in the top 10 all race, something which has never happened before in Formula One.